introduce Mark Plant, and he's going to say a few words to you.
Whoever might be in the room, just to turn lights on so I can wander around a little bit. Because I don't want to be all formal standing behind the podium if that's possible. Thanks. In the meantime, I'll try and stay in the lights so people can see. For those of you who don't read newspapers or who haven't heard a little bit about my story, I'll give you a quick summary. About 3 years ago, I was in a situation similar to Kris'S. I didn't have liver disease, I had heart disease that I was born with. I had those surgeries when I was a day old and a year old, and was then pretty healthy for a long time, but my heart condition got more and more complicated. It began to affect my lungs to the point where I wasn't able, thanks very much Jack for the light, that's awesome. So I wasn't able to function at a very high level, got quite sick, and was told that I was going to need a heart-lung transplant. Now, when I was first told this, I was obviously very scared and nervous, as anybody would be. One of the big concerns for me was that they don't do heart-lung transplants everywhere in Canada. In fact, they only do them in 3 centers, one in Montreal, one in Toronto, and one in Edmonton. And so, in order to have my transplant, I was going to have to move. Because when organs are received by a donor, from a donor, to take into someone that they're going to be given to, they only survive for a short period of time outside of their bodies, about 6 hours for months. So that meant that I had to live very close to the hospital where my surgery was going to happen if it was going to work. So my dad and I left my mom and my 3 brothers at home and we moved to Toronto so that I could be put on a waiting list. There's a lot of misconceptions around organ donation, and so I'm going to try and take a little bit of time. I have to sort a few of those out for you. The first one is about the waiting list. People hear about the waiting list and they've heard of somebody who's had a transplant or somebody who's waiting. And I actually heard the question asked today, so where are you on the list? What number are you on the list? And the list doesn't work that way, because organs have to match your body, your size, your blood type. And so there are a number of factors that go into deciding who gets which organs. And so there is no list of one and however many, and you just wait your turn. Because the organs have to fit you, even if you've been waiting the longest. If they aren't suitable for you, then they aren't going to work. So when I was put on the list, I asked, how long am I going to have to wait? And the doctor said, we don't know. Could be 2 days, could be 2 years. You just have to wait and hope that the right organs come along. After I waited for 4 months, my condition got worse and my doctors put me in the hospital. They promised me I was only going to be there for a couple of days while we sorted things out. But anybody who's been in a hospital knows that hospital time kind of goes a little slower than the real world. And the days turned into weeks, and a couple of weeks turned into a couple of months. I went into the hospital in April, and in August, I was still there. In total, I lived for 6 months in a tiny little hospital room, 2 provinces away from home, waiting for a miracle. And on September 7th, 2002, at 10:15 p.m., my nurse arrived at my door, the news that I'd been waiting for. We need you to come to the nurse's station with a phone call for me, that's all she had said. Now, I'd been living there for 6 months, and I'd never had a phone call at the nurse's station before, so I knew that this was something major. I picked up the phone, and the lady on the other end said, I think we have a set of heart and lungs for you. I said, thanks. She said, we're not sure yet, because even once the donor is identified, we still have to check the organs to make sure that they're suitable for transplant. So we'll let you know in a couple of hours. If everything goes well, the surgery will be in about 4 hours at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, at 5 o'clock in the morning, we were still waiting in my room. And finally, I was taken downstairs, went through surgery, was in intensive care, pretty much unconscious for about 5 days, was moved upstairs, and after 16 days in the hospital after surgery, I was released from the hospital. Now, I'm living a life that I only dreamed about. In May, I celebrated my 26th birthday by running a half marathon. Thank you. I told you that not to get you to applaud, but to make you recognize that anything is possible. Before my surgery, I wasn't able to walk from here to the end of the auditorium up that ramp without getting really out of breath. We used to have to plan when we went out shopping or when we did things so that we could park close to the door so that I wouldn't have to walk very far because I got winded and out of breath very easily. I wasn't working and I wasn't in school while I waited. We just sort of hung out around the house all day because I didn't really have a lot of energy to do much else. Now I'm able to work full time, run 5 days a week, and do things that I only dreamed of. And I'm able to do all of that because somebody that I don't even know decided that they were willing to give their organs to somebody else once they were home. It's a hard thing to have to think about, the idea that you might die someday and that somebody else might use your organs. It's not something that anybody wants to think about. But I tell people that grown-ups plan their funerals, they plan lots of other things and talk about other issues that are uncomfortable that we don't really like to talk about. But we do it because we have to. And this should be something that goes on that list. One person who signs a card and tells their family about their wishes can save or improve 40 lives through the donation of all of their organs, tissue, corneas for eyes, blood vessels, joints, all kinds of things. One person affects 40 lives. A lot of young people are really enthusiastic, and if you ask them what they want to do with their lives, they may not be sure, but they all say things like, I want to change the world, I want to make lives better for other people. There isn't much better way than to give yourself to help continue the lives of others. So I encourage all of you to think about organ donation. I'm not asking you all to sign a card, but I want you all to take a look at the idea. Get informed, make a decision, and then most importantly, share that decision with your family and your friends. A lot of people will say, sign your own donor card to let people know that you want to be a donor. And signing a card is a great idea. But a donor card is not a legally binding document. And so if your family decides, if that day ever arises where they're asked and you're in an accident and something happens, it's your family who's going to be asked, do you want to donate your organs or not? And if they say no, then the answer is no. And it doesn't matter how many signed cards you have in your wallet, that's the decision that's going to be made. So that's why it's so important to have the conversation with the people that you love. So I encourage all of you to go home tonight and do that. Before I go, I want to give people the chance to ask any questions about organ donation in general. I've tried to be fairly informed, so I hope I can answer them. If I can't, we'll make sure that we get the answers to you. I know that Mrs. Bauer and the Student Council is going to make sure that you all have organ donor cards and information available to you, so you won't have to go and seek it out like many people have to. It's going to be there in front of you, and I encourage you to take a look at it and make a decision and share that decision one way or the other with your family. So I open the floor up for questions. I won't make an hour around this today, as long as I can hear you all try to answer. Questions are good because it's important to dispel all of the myths about organ donation, and I could talk for an hour about all of the myths that are out there. But the easiest way to figure out the ones that are in this room is by having you ask questions. So I open the floor to you, and hope that you don't leave me here in silence. Yeah, there's a hand. Did the heart and lungs affect my run? Good question. They affected it in that they allowed me to do it. With my old heart and my old lungs, I wouldn't have been able to run at all. I wasn't able to run at all. I was barely able to walk. My old heart, as I called it, the one I was born with, was about 3 times the size of the heart they replaced it with. Over the years, they've gotten so sick and so unable to function that it just kept trying to get bigger. Your heart is a muscle like any other muscle. And so I was asking it to work harder, and so its way to work harder was to get bigger and try and get stronger. But unfortunately, that meant that it didn't relax, and it didn't fill its blood properly, and it didn't supply my body with the blood that it needed. That also had an effect on my lungs and my breathing, so that I wasn't able to get the air that I needed. Any of you who have tried to run or even walk fast know that it takes more air, and your heartbeat speeds up in order to supply your body with the nutrients it needs to move. My old body couldn't do that. My new body and the new heart and lungs of someone else allowed me to do that very, very